Welcome to the Point of No Return podcast, a show at the intersection of technology and strategy. On this show, we interview industry leaders and experts to better understand how they think about strategy during this time of exponential progress.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Point of No Return podcast. On today's show, I spoke with Samuel Poirier, CEO at Seahub. I've known Samuel for a few years, and he's one of the most impressive individuals that I know. Samuel was the first French Canadian to be named a Thiel Fellow. Samuel founded his first company when he was 14, where he would import minerals from several countries to Montreal. At 18, he founded the first debit card for Bitcoin. He then founded Retinad, an analytics platform for virtual reality that would help VR companies understand how users are interacting with their platform. And now he leads Seahub, which is an online OTA helping consumers book cruises online. On the show, we spoke about his obsessive nature, which was pretty interesting, how he started companies at such a young age, his passion for space exploration and Fermi's paradox, how he obtained a Thiel Fellowship, the importance of mentorship and the role that it's played in his career, and how Seahub, his current startup, is transforming an old sector with a new distribution model. Sam is a bright young entrepreneur that has already achieved so much in such a short period of time. I really hope that you'll enjoy the conversation. Samuel, it's very good to see you, man.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for being on the show. It's been a while since we've caught up. I think you've kind of changed lives a few times since we've seen each other.
Yeah.
And one thing I guess that's always impressed me about you is just, is going to sound like an old man comment, how young you are in the sense of you've accomplished a lot in a short period of time.
Thank you.
What I'd like to know is what pushed you to want to start companies at such a young age? I think the first one you were 14, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. It's a long story and it's rather boring, frankly. But the big thing, I guess, is that throughout my life, I've always been. I guess I can really be. My single biggest element of character is probably passion, and I'm someone who, whenever I find something I find interesting, I become kind of almost obsessively obsessed by it. And it's almost a disease, frankly. And throughout my life, like I can go back to even when I was like 2 or 3 years old, and I was obsessed by mushrooms for some time, and I would like study all the Canadian mushrooms. I would know like the Latin names, and I would go in the forest and like collect them. Then I had like a phase where I was obsessed by skyscrapers, and I knew like of all the Art Deco skyscrapers in the world. I built like a New York replica in my room when I was like 5 or 6, and like with cardboard boxes, and then like I had a phase where I was obsessed by gemology, got really obsessed by just knowing as much as possible about rocks, and I've always had these weird phases, but when I became around 13 to 14, I started realizing I read a lot of economic theory. And I became a very staunch capitalist. I really think capitalism is even if it's flawed in some ways, I still really think it's a system that really drove humanity to new heights, and it's going to continue to do so. And I realized that the best way to normally carry out my passions is through capitalist endeavor, through building a company around whatever passion I have. And it's sort of that how my first company emerged. So I was really obsessed by gemology, started collecting gemstones, importing them from mines throughout the world, and eventually I started reselling them to Montreal jewelers, and became a small business, and did rather well for a very first attempt. But then it sort of unlocked something in my mind. I was like, okay, there's something here. Like, this is the right way for me to proceed forward. And I should just always, for the rest of my life, be building, projects around whatever passion I have. And this went on, for a number of years. And basically this from like 14, I sort of see it almost like 14 was my renaissance. And I realized like what I need to do with my life. And, it sort of followed throughout the rest of the next few years. So like after that, I became obsessed by, back then it was just crypto, but it was, that was like 2011, 2012. So crypto was kind of weird back then. And, I got really obsessed by crypto because of a friend. We ended up building the first debit card for crypto, merged with, the largest exchange in the world, which was in Japan, Mt. Gox. now infamous. And then after that, was VR. And then after that now, not that I'm particularly passionate about cruising, but I think it's a really, really good, interesting space, and that, there's a lot of opportunity. So that itself passionates me. And yeah, I mean, I guess that's a very long and boring answer to a pretty simplistic question.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. It's very interesting. I want to go back to one point you said about capitalism as a system. Like, I'm going to take a Churchill quote, but change it, right? Capitalism is the worst system that we have, except for all the other ones.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So it is the best way, like you said, to create value. And I think match that with kind of your obsessive nature. The obsessive nature, I would like to understand, have you reflected upon, like, is it something in your upbringing? Is it something that your parents taught you? Or is it just something innate that you tend to find one thing, and over a short but very intense period of time, you just need to absolutely understand that topic, that aspect of life to its fullest?
Yeah, it's a bit of that. I was, I think I was very lucky because first of all, I grew up in a society where, a lot of these things are possible, which in other time periods in humanity and other societies would not be possible. But also, I was extremely lucky because I had parents that, first of all, come from a scientific background. So for them, it's very normal to inquire about the natural world and try to make hypotheses and sort of find out whatever you can about everything that surrounds us. And my mom, for example, is a PhD in genetics. So she's always been very supportive of any passion I would have. At some point, I got obsessed by the gallbladder when I was like 4 years old. I was obsessed for some reason by the gallbladder. And my mom would bring me to like hospitals, show me around books with gallbladders, and like she really helped me there. And my father is the same. So my father is a surgeon, very open scientific mind. I've been very lucky in that sense. And I think, it was an upbringing that sort of almost set the course for what I would become. But I also think I have naturally a very curious mind, and, I just, whatever interests me at the moment, I will try to know every possible thing about it. To a point where one general passion I've had, probably my dominant passion throughout my life, is space exploration. And it's so bad. I crave information about space exploration so much that I can literally probably say that I've listened or watched, if not 3 or 4 times, all the documentaries about space on YouTube. I would dare you to find one that I have not seen at least 4 times. I crave that kind of information, and I guess it's my nature, but it's kind of weird.
It was like, I remember back to the first time we met, I think you were still at Retinad developing your VR startup. And it was pretty striking. You walk into your office, there's this huge Elon Musk poster and huge posters of SpaceX. So it was pretty much a giveaway that you're into space. A random side question, Fermi's paradox. What's your thoughts?
I think it's very likely unicellular life is very common throughout the universe. I think multicellular life is probably like an order of magnitude rarer. I think intelligent life is extremely rare, and the reason for that is if you go from the 100% of planets, and then you go from then to which percentage has unicellular life, which percentage of unicellular life splits into eventually becomes multicellular, which by itself is a crazy leap. And then multicellular, to get intelligence, we have a bunch of animals on Earth that have intelligence. Like dolphins are extremely smart, but they don't have hands, so they can't build tools. And that's been seen throughout a lot of species on the planet. So I think for it to become civilization, you need a crazy amount of circumstances to amount to being able to actually build something. But I think what we're going to find in the next centuries as we start exploring for real is that there's a lot of planets that have life, unicellular, and it's probably pretty much a common across any planet that has liquid water. But I think it's going to be very rare that you're going to find a planet that has a civilization. Yeah,
it's pretty crazy to think that humanity might be this crazy fluke of one in I don't know how many billions or trillions of chances that actually occurred. And it's also striking that the recent discovery of liquid water on Mars is not the top story all for a week, right? It's just this little side thing, and I'm like, how is this not
not possible? I know. But I think the other thing too is that even if you have civilization, and I'm very worried about this, is it's very likely that as soon as you create virtual reality, and you create like a real, not virtual reality as we understand it today. Virtual reality like advanced 500 years in the future, where it's like, it's seamless. If the ultimate goal of the universe is to create the maximum happiness for the maximum amount of people, well, the logical way of proceeding to that is to go in virtual reality, because you can have everything you want. And I think it's very likely that civilizations, as soon as they get there, they get sort of stuck in there, because it's very hard to do things in real life, but it's not that hard to do them in VR. So they get stuck in this weird virtual environment.
Yeah, it talks to the whole kind of simulation thing too, right? Like my whole theory on that is what we're seeing with, elections down south kind of proves that I think we're living in some kind of simulation, right? There's like a glitch in the algorithm. It's like, let's see if we do this, what happens?
Could be, yeah.
Well, get back maybe to the real life. You're also recognized for something called a Thiel Fellowship, which I think, personally knowing about it is super cool. I'd love to maybe if you could explain what it is and how you got around to obtaining it.
Yeah, so I guess that was kind of a fluke as well, a fluke of chance. Peter Thiel Fellowship is, it's honestly one of the greatest things I've ever had in my life, one of the greatest chances I've had in my life. And basically what it is Peter Thiel every year will select about 10 people throughout the world who are below 23 years old and have significantly had like pretty significant careers either in science or business, despite their age. And frankly, the first time I was approached by them, I never thought I had a shot, because the people that were in there, like Vitalik Buterin, the finder of the theorem, is in there.
No way! Wow.
Yeah, so Vitalik is in there. Boyan Slat, which is cleaning the oceans with ocean cleanup at 22 years old, is cleaning like the plastic problem in the oceans, is in there too. So it's all composed of like pretty crazy people. It's honestly astonishing. And somehow I got in there. And it's amazing, because they give you $100K basically. It's personal money. You do whatever you want with it. And the only clause is you need to drop out of school, of college. And I was someone who never really fit into conventional boxes. So this kind of came at a very convenient time for me, because my parents are academics and academics, and they were not very fond of me getting out of college. So this was like, it was very lucky for me to get it, because it gave me a very good excuse as to why I should drop out. It's honestly astonishing. We meet probably bi-quarterly or something like that in some location around the world. We're very fortunate to be, some of us are more closely mentored by Peter. So I wouldn't say that I have like constant contact with him, but I probably talk to him a few times a year to sort of catch up, understand where I'm at, and he's very helpful. He's an incredible genius, frankly. And yeah, it's one of the greatest fortunes I've had in my life.
It's amazing. It's amazing. What's the most common question you get from people about it? Like, I imagine asking how's Peter as a person, and they must want to know.
Yeah, but most people are still a little hesitant about the idea that there should be another trajectory than college, and depends on the circles. In tech, it's more normal, but in any other circle you go into, it's like it's still shunned upon a bit, and I still get a bit of questions as to like, oh, you don't think you're going to regret it, and like it's not even a hesitation for me. No, I'm not going to regret this. 100% no. Yeah. I won't go into the whole education system as I have some pretty strong thoughts. I see value having been in it, but in its current format, there needs to be a blank canvas and a reimagining of it to a certain extent. And I just see the future very tough, because just the pace of innovation is not there, right? It's just it's not changing fast enough. Yeah.
So what year did you get to the fellowship?
I was 22, so that's 2 years ago.
Sam, if you could walk us through what happened, right after Retinad to Seahub, like follow us through, that process.
Yeah. So when I left Retinad, I sort of was wondering for a couple of months, like what I should be doing next, and I tried a few small experiments here and there, but none of like full scale, just like small experiments, and eventually. One of the most one thing that's been sort of underlying in my life for the last couple of years is I was very lucky to have a very, very strong mentor. And while I can't state his name, I would argue that he is one of the greatest Canadian entrepreneurs ever, frankly. With very little resources, in about 10 years, he built some of the most well-known companies on the web today that did extremely well. And the crazy thing is that the guy never raised any money for it to build them. And I was extremely fortunate to have this guy in my life to sort of coach me and everything. And when I left Retinad, one thing that became very clear is that any new company I would attempt in the future, we really wanted to work together on it. And we sort of analyzed a few different fields, and eventually we came to the cruise space, which because he's the initial founder of Flighthub, and he was already very knowledgeable about cruise space and knew that there was something there. So we started like really looking at it and analyzing it. And after a couple of months of research, it became very clear that there was something to be done there. And it became, it's a $40 billion industry that really hasn't changed for the last 15, 20 years. It's old, it's inefficient. The players that run it today are the same players that were around in the 1990s. And yet they still every year, every top 10 player makes billions. So for us, it was very clear that there was something to be done there with a few optimizations. And so we started analyzing it. We built a website. We shipped it in September, and with very little funding, we were able to get to profitability within the same year. And not like small profitability, like rather at high level, not high level, but like a significant level of profitability. And now I think it's very clear for us that even 20% improvements across a few of the operations of this kind of company, we can yield like pretty significant results and build something that could be very impressive. If you look at our competitors, a company like Vacations to Go or Cruises.com, they're making billions, and yet they haven't changed their recipe for 20 years. And there's a lot of lack of optimization in their operations that even in a year we were able to beat them on some numbers.
Very interesting. Yeah, so it sounds like you're taking you're changing the distribution model of how the cruise industry works.
Yeah,
right. So you're taking a new way, having direct access to customers, aggregating supplier demand, and I imagine trying to improve margins from that perspective.
Yeah.
But doing it really to a new sector, to an old sector that doesn't, for the most part, doesn't apply these kind of methods.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your acquisition model? I'm guessing it's mostly online acquisition right now, and trying to retain people, increase their customer lifetime value via social, so SEM, SEO, etc.
Yeah. So we're that's pretty much like 60% of my day to day. Basically, we're like one of the top players on Kayak for cruises. We're one of the top players on TripAdvisor for cruises. There's a Booking Buddy as well. We're we're pretty much dominant on Booking Buddy. So there's a few big, well-known sources of traffic where we're already very present, and there's a few other ones we're going on to, and yeah, I think we're gradually gaining a bit of market share here and there, and it's a lot of SEM, it's a lot of SEO, but yeah.
And what's your biggest challenge right now?
It's an interesting business because it's very reliant, despite being in 2018, it's still very reliant on phone. And it took us a couple of months to actually get it. I was like, we're trying to really optimize for online bookings, and no one wanted to book online. So we're like, okay, well, this isn't working. And in the first few months, our user acquisition costs were like through the roof because no one wanted to book online, and we're trying to force all the users to do it. But now that we around January, February, we started really understanding that it was a phone business. And as soon as that became apparent, we started really optimizing for that. And now the biggest challenge we have is the ultimate bottleneck basically of this company is how many agents, good agents, can you get that will successfully turn a profit. And it's kind of tricky to find them. It's a lot of churn. You hire, 5-6 people. You end up with a few of them, a couple of them staying in the company, but You need to find very specific types of personality. But every agent we bring on board brings us like very significant revenue every year. So as soon as you know that guy will perform well, you can sort of project how much that guy times 100 will do for the company in the next few years. So it's very cool because like, you know, your KPIs from month to month are like, okay, well, I want to bring my agent team from this number to this number. And you can pretty much already know how much you're going to make that month. And it then becomes a function of like, how fast can you get these people through the door? Because ad spend is more trivial than that.
Yeah, I'm guessing there's a bit of capital allocation as well, because you know you can spend more capital to acquire the traffic, and you have your model.
Yeah.
But it's like, how fast can you spend to hire people? And like you said, it's the bottleneck is
finding
the good people. You kind of know the good conversion rates. Where do you think is the company's strength right now? Is it in the online acquisition, optimizing the funnel? Where do you find that you guys you're uniquely positioned to grow faster than the competition?
I would say it's a mix of a few things, but we're really good at user acquisition right now. Our biggest challenge is still on the call and the agent side, but we're really good at the user acquisition part. We're below all the market costs, pretty much beating competitors everywhere there. So I think that's where we're strongest, and it's kind of normal. Like we sort of grew up in this space, my generation and pretty much the whole people in the team. But I think we're going to have to learn more about how to operate a call center and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's not easy one. Yeah, I'm thinking back to another Montreal company, Luxury Treats, that has a similar model where very profitable online OTA. Obviously in different space, longer history, but their key to success was the travel agents, the people talking basically on the phones, the sales agents, and finding good people that they can convert, that have a good conversion rate. Do you follow the industry trend of spending, let's say, 80% of your budget on, let's say, just Google and Facebook, or have you been able to diversify your spend across smaller niche channels?
We're pretty diversified, frankly. We're not that reliant on paid traffic, and I think we're going to increasingly be less reliant on it for a couple of reasons. But I can't say too much about this.
You don't want to give away the secret sauce.
Yeah, exactly. But frankly, like we're not too dependent on paid, and even the paid sources it's very spread out. It's not like one or two big players.
What do you think is happening in the online travel space right now? Like, what are the big trends that you're keeping an eye on?
It's interesting because we're not in a particularly we're not in a very changing time in the travel space. Because I find that, you have like the Airbnbs and the luxury REITs and stuff like that. Like, they are in the up curve, and there's a lot of there's a lot of movement there. But in the more traditional location, in more traditional fields like air, hotel, car rental, stuff like that, there's interesting movement like Hopper. But otherwise, the OTAs are pretty stagnant. Hotels, I don't think will change for quite a while. I'm not an expert on hotel at all, so, I might be fully wrong. But hotels is such a hard field to go into that it's unlikely to be disturbed by other players for quite some time. Air is different, but, still very... I think Hopper definitely has unlocked something pretty crazy, but I am unsure that it is the 100% future of this industry. I think it's going to work very well for fragment of the population, but I don't think it's going to be 100%. Yeah. But I mean, I might be extremely wrong there. But the cruise space, like for sure, apart from us, there's no one else moving there. We're literally, apart from one other company, we're the only company that was founded after 2010.
Oh, wow. Okay. Didn't know
space. Yeah, which is kind of crazy.
Is there anything happening in your space that you think doesn't have enough attention or is underappreciated?
I think the space itself, frankly, because there's no entry. Yeah, there's no new entries. It's very dominated by old legacy players. And that's fine. I don't want anyone to change it for now.
You want to stay under the radar.
Yeah, that's the game plan. So no, I think there's not a crazy amount of really big changes happening, frankly.
Yeah. It's interesting, because I can imagine just the opportunity to scale with or without venture capital, which is a whole other conversation, but would make you a natural potential target for someone that wants to grow that aspect, right? Like an Expedia or Booking.com. So there's a lot of consolidation happening in the space right now, which was when I was in the space a little bit from a different angle. A lot of the big players were just solidifying their positions, right? To go back to the hotel thing, one thing I kind of disagree with a little bit is the difficulty to get into it, primarily for one company that you already mentioned, is Airbnb, and that's the one area where they're getting they're losing revenue is from Airbnb. But that being said, the core hotel business is not in a systemic structural decline. There'll just be fewer of them, but the notion of hotels is not going away.
So, I think you're right, but I should have made the difference. But basically, in my mind, Airbnb for me, even if it cannibalizes a bit the hotel market, I think I really see it as a different product, addressing a different population than hotels. And while I really believe like it's going to get massive, and it's already massive, I hardly see the whole hotel ecosystem shifting towards the Airbnb model. I might be fully wrong. Again, I'm not an expert, but I just think it's unlikely. I have a very hard time imagining that, in my 40s or my 50s, I'm going to rent an Airbnb. Yeah, I'm doing it now sometimes, but even like, I think as soon as you get beyond a certain level of means, you will try to still go for hotels because it's still a bit easier to play with.
What excites you the most in the space? Why do you wake up in the morning and excited to build this company?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I had VCs asking me like, oh well, how can you build a company if you're not passionate about the product? And it is a valid query, but the reality is that if you're passionate about the opportunity itself, and like you like the operation side, you're passionate about how you get your users, the machine itself, kind of thing. There's different, like I'm extremely passionate about the machine we're building. Am I passionate about cruises? Not really. Like, frankly, I've been on 2. I don't like them more than normal travel products. But I think there's a crazy opportunity to build a really cool company here. And that's what I'm really passionate about. I think the opportunity to build a solid company here is very, very clear.
Yeah. Well, Sam, I always saw you as a company builder first, someone that just likes to build with his hands. So for that, I'm super grateful that you took the time, and I'm really, really happy to know someone that has so much, how should I say, wind in their sails. Maybe one last question, Sam. Where can people find out more about you and what you're doing?
Very frankly, I'm not very active on social media. I used to be. I dislike it nowadays. I think it makes me read less, so I stopped using it. But I guess like maybe on LinkedIn, or I don't really have Twitter. I don't really engage on Facebook. I barely have an Instagram, so I guess LinkedIn, honestly. Yeah,
maybe that's a good thing because you're busy doing stuff.
I don't know, but yeah.
Cool. Well, Sam, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to the Point of No Return podcast. Never miss an episode by clicking on the subscribe button on iTunes or Google Play.